Today, my heart is heavy for all of the victims of the attacks yesterday in Sri Lanka, for all Sri Lankans, and for humanity, because events like these hurt us all. It exposes just how much humanity digresses, and it shows all the work that is needed to be done for us to be a more empathetic and kind global community, to work to understand one another better, to work to live side by side with one another, and to work to learn from each other, to see the differences, and rather than fearing them or trying to eliminate them, to take those and appreciate them and learn from them and find the beauty in them. And that's hard in a lot of ways. And we've seen that. We've seen the way it comes out in violence in Mali and in Kenya and in New Zealand and all over the world in the places that we're not hearing about because there's not enough media attention, or because the victims are not the right kind of people, or because the death toll isn't high enough. These aren't things that are only happening en masse. It's happening every day. And this kind of dehumanization also happens not just in murder, right? It's the microaggressions that we show to people who are different to us, even in our family or our friend groups or in our workplace. We're so lucky that we live in this interconnected world where we have instant communication. We're able to know what is happening. We're able to see the good. We're able to come together with others in times like this. But at the same time, this is leading to disconnects. This is leading to enhanced hatred. This is leading to dehumanization. And for me, when I hear about events like this, especially the way that it was done yesterday, with the majority of these bombs happening in churches on Easter, the holiest of all days for Christians, there's this extra sense of like shock, and that's the idea, right? That's what they want to do. And the reason why places of worship are targeted is because places of worship matter so much to the faithful in a way that goes beyond this world, in a way that goes beyond all of the negativity that exists in our world, all of the divisions. It's beyond yourself. The biggest thing in faith is always to be selfless, right? To worship and appreciate the ineffable magic that is present in this world but goes beyond this world. And so to attack places of worship is just, it's horrific. That's the one place where we should feel the safest. I'm incredibly religious and incredibly spiritual. It's the most important part of my life, my faith in Islam, and the idea of having fear to go into a mosque or to have fear of praying. All places of worship must be sacred. It's where we go to escape the lived reality, but to also better the lived reality. It's where we go to connect with the divine, to be more than ourselves. And communal prayer, shared prayer, is so beautiful because together, praying together, that magic is magnified. And so to attack the most beautiful thing in the world, to attack people when they are showing devotion to the divine, is almost a paradox, because you can't bring hate into faith. Or you shouldn't be able to bring hate into faith. And it's so upsetting that anybody would try to do that, to destroy something that is only good. We need to respect all religions, because no matter how you pray or what you believe, prayer is incredibly special, and it's always special to the faithful. And so there are aspects of religion and spirituality that we should debate and we should talk about with one another and we should share, but we can't bring hate into that. It's really hard when something seems so true to you and is interpreted in a different way to others. But that's like the fascinating, like intellectual challenge of it, right? The intellectual and spiritual challenge of it is to engage with people who believe in different ways and to appreciate that even though the way that they manifest this incredibly special part of their life is different than the way that you manifest it, that it's just as special to them and that you need to thus respect it. And maybe that's like the highest level of empathy, to take what's most important in you and recognize that it's important in a different way to somebody else. And so these attacks just really like hit home for me as someone who cares so much about faith and prayer. And yeah, I mean, it's, if you can't feel safe in your church or your mosque or your temple, you know, that takes away so much from life. Yeah. I've visited Sri Lanka once. Even though it's really close to the UAE, I've only gone the one time. It was in 2012 for the spring break of my junior year of college. I stayed mostly around Kandy. I remember exploring the city, like just walking everywhere that I could to the Temple of the Tooth, but also through the botanical garden. But I most remember a day that I went to Dambulla, to the cave temple, these like beautiful designed like statues of Buddha inside of the cave. But my absolute favorite thing, and one of the things that I always include in like my top lists of places to go, is the Sigiriya rock fortress. This incredibly fascinating like carved fort on the top of this huge rock. It was like otherworldly, like it wasn't something that I expected. The views were incredible, like down into all the green, and that's always kind of stuck with me as one of the few places that like gives me awe. You know, I've seen so many things all around the world, but honestly, Sigiriya for me is up there at the top with many of the other wonders of the world. I also was in Colombo for a little bit, and I would love to go back. There's a lot that I want to do, like surfing in the south of Sri Lanka, like exploring the tea plantations. Like tea is my favorite thing, so I'd love to go see that. I really don't think that events like this should dissuade people from visiting Sri Lanka. It's generally an incredibly safe place. Like this was a shocking but a rare attack. The history of Sri Lanka has been an incredibly troubled one, but in the past couple decades there has been so much progress and so much more unity than we could have maybe ever expected. I think that there's definitely a chance for this event to bring people together, to like form something that people can gather behind, and that we can see these victims not by their specific identities, but as humans, as Sri Lankans, and that we can all have empathy for that and then work to build this global community. This is so hard for me to talk about and to think about, just because it's like incomprehensible in so many ways to bring hatred into faith. And yet that's so much of the history of religion. And I think that's important for us to recognize. And I think in my life, I've always been incredibly good at separating culture from spirituality and from faith. But that's impossible for a lot of people. I mean, we view politics and religion and spirituality as like one and the same in so many different ways. I mean, we go beyond the appreciation of the divine and the respect for the ineffable things that we have in this world, and instead we allow this thing to divide us. And it makes sense in some ways, because when something is important to you, you want others to see that. And when something feels true to you, you want others to see that. And when somebody is doing something that you don't agree with at your absolute, like, fundamental core, then it's difficult. But that's what our world is about. That's what the diversity is recognizing the different ways that people come to the same goals. And at the end of the day, all religions are trying to bring us closer to that ineffable divine magic, that feeling of positivity that we have when we see something beautiful, when you love somebody else, when you're praying, when you are connected with nature, when you see a sunset, or you feel happy, or you hug your mother, or you have a child. That feeling, that good, that's what all religion is trying to do. Or that's what all faith is trying to do. So, to see that bringing us apart is just beyond.